Have you ever heard of Semillon? Well, now you have, and we're going to find out all about it. In this episode, we're going to look at several things that virtually nobody knows about this Semillon grape. I'm really excited about this one. Come on, let's go. Hey Posse, I'm Pierre, and welcome to Asti Wine Consultants. As we're learning more about wine together, I've put together a series focusing on grapes. More specifically, a category of grapes called noble grapes. Out of over 10,000 wine grapes in the world, there are only 18 that are called noble grapes. 9 of them are white, and 9 of them are red. These noble grapes are the backbone of the entire wine industry, and most people have never heard of even half of them. My hope is that you go with me on this quest to try and taste these 18 noble grapes. Now if you do, I'll certify you as a Asti Wine noble grape aficionado or a noble grape connoisseur. More of that actually will be available to you at the end of this video in the description. Today we're talking about Semillon. We're going to learn 5 key things about this noble grape, like some general trivia, where it originated, some of the basics, what it tastes like, and what to pair with it. Now, for those of you who are not familiar with the Semillon grape, I hope you'll expand your horizons, indulge yourself in this hidden treasure. I think you'll absolutely love it. Now also, keep in mind, if you like what you hear, click like, subscribe, and hit the little bell to be notified when there's a new post. Oh, also, make sure you share this with your friends. I'm sure they'd appreciate it. Are you ready to get started? Number 1, some general trivia. Now, Semillon is a gold skin grape used to make white wines. It's native to Bordeaux, France, and back in the 1700s, it was known in Bordeaux as the white wine vin blanc of Semillon. That's a town in Bordeaux. Here's some trivia you can take to your next cocktail party. The reason it's called Semillon is because it's a smashed together or sort of hurried version of Saint-Emilion. By 1736, the French fieldworkers, vintners, were accustomed to calling it by a slang sort of diminutive term, or the name Semillon. The chateau owners then followed suit. Now, when it's used as a single varietal wine, it's vinified from sweet to dry, but it's primarily used as a blending grape. It's commonly blended with Sauvignon Blanc and Muscadel to make some Bordeaux wines. It typically has a great price, particularly in the US. Despite how cheap it is, Semillon has a pedigree that stands alongside the most popular white wines in the entire world. And one more bit of trivia. Did you know that one of the world's most exalted dessert wines, sauternes, is made mostly with the Semillon grape? Number 2, where it grows. Semillon is a golden skin grape used to make white wines that run the spectrum from dry to sweet. As you can see on the chart, it's grown mostly in France and Australia. We'll invest most of our time on those 2 nations of the world. It was once considered the most planted grape in the world. Although when flocks were ravaged France, most chateaus or vineyards replaced it with easy to come by and less temperamental Chardonnay. Now, Semillon is France's 3rd most planted white wine varietal, behind Sauvignon Blanc and Chardonnay. In the early 17th century, over 90% of South Africa's vineyards were planted with Semillon. However, over time, South Africa hasn't been much of a player in the wine industry. Subsequently, they've transitioned away from Semillon, focusing more on Chardonnay. Semillon only makes up to about 1% of African vineyards now. It first arrived in Australia in the early 19th century and by the 1820s had grown exponentially. Here, styles vary from dry and fresh to sweet and rich. In the US, they're not very widely planted. You'll find old vines both in Washington State and California. Here again, in addition to being produced as a single variety, it's frequently blended with Sauvignon Blanc, making a Bordeaux style, that was easy for me to say, a Bordeaux style blend, but of course from the US. In the 1950s, Chile's vineyards were made up of over 75% Semillon, but because of the rapidly increasing popularity of Chardonnay in the 1970s, many growers ripped out most of their Semillon and planted Chardonnay and Sauvignon Blanc. Today, much of its remaining acreage features 100-year-old vines that produce incredibly distinctive Semillon. If you want a real treat, try one of those. It will absolutely curl your toes. How are you doing there? Is this information making sense? If it is, write Asti in the comments below. Number 3, the basics of the grape varietal. Semillon is loved for its full body like Chardonnay, but with flavors closer to Pinot Gris and Sauvignon Blanc. Generally lower in acidity, the flavors of Semillon-based wine depends on the climate and the harvest time. We'll touch on that in a second. Because of Semillon's thin skins and other factors, it's susceptible to what's called noble rot, which is caused by the botrytis fungus. Noble rot sort of dries out the grape and causes the sugars and flavors to become more concentrated. This makes Semillon wines, particularly from Sauternes and Barsac, France, world-class dessert wines. Now, people frequently ask me, what's the difference between Semillon and Sauvignon Blanc? Very simply, they're two distinctively different white grapes. They're linked together because they're often blended together, particularly in Bordeaux and many other regions of the world. Sauvignon Blanc is definitely flashier. It has more intense fruit flavors, more vivid acidity, and a lighter body. Semillon is heavier, with lower acidity and appears almost oily or waxy, or it has this sort of waxy quality to it. Blended together, Semillon can give Sauvignon Blanc a terrific structure and weight. The two balance out each other extremely well. Number 4, the taste profile is sort of building on number 3, the basics of the grape. It's light to medium body with, as you can see on the taste profile chart, a trademark waxiness. I call that wax lips. Do you remember those things? Well, anyway, Semillon aromas include hay, white flowers, and lemon in its youth. Those notes turn honeyed and toasty with some age. It's often compared to the flavors of Pinot Gris, Sauvignon Blanc, and occasionally Riesling. When aged in oak, it brings buttery, creamy notes. Depending on where the Semillon is grown, it can range from being a zesty, palate-cleansing wine like Sauvignon Blanc to a rich, creamy, lemon-flavored wine like an oaked Chardonnay. Actually, as you can see on this chart, Semillon flavor profile is affected by the climate, whether it's hot or cold. In hot climates, you'll find the fruit flavors more ripe and the alcohol level being around 12 to 14%. In cooler climates, you'll find higher acidity and it'll resemble the popular cousin, Sauvignon Blanc. There will be more floral aromas with an alcohol level of between 10 and 12%. Number 5, some suggested food pairings. When you think Semillon, think spice, because Semillon wines has a moderate body and maintains a fresh, sort of zippy flavor. It holds its own to broader, bolder, aromatic dishes. Try Indian foods, but not too spicy. Like go with brown woodsy spices, again like cinnamon and star anise. You can see on the pairing chart, it works well with a whole variety of meats, veggies, spices and herbs, and cheeses. Currently, White Bordeaux has a reputation as a sushi lover's wine. This has to do with how Semillon balances raw fish and pickled ginger. A classic dish with Semillon-based dessert wines like sauternes is foie gras. I also think it's ridiculously good with a salted caramel ice cream. Folks, remember, you can get 1 or 2 Asti Wine Consultants Noble Wine certifications. Either the aficionado, once you have 6 of the Noble episodes under your belt, or the connoisseur certification once you complete all 18 Noble wines. For either, you'll also need to watch the introductory episode. Actually, there's more information available in the description below. Well, there you have it. Everything you need to know about the Noble Grape Semillon. Thanks again for joining me. Hey Posse, thanks so much for investing the time to watch this video. I trust it was helpful to you. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments below. And please consider hitting subscribe. Also, click here to check out our new online shop. We have a great lineup of wine-related items that will help you get the most out of your wine experience. Oh, and be sure to check out these other videos. Until next time, cheers.